going dead.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Please accept my humble obeisance. Welcome to Wisdom, the nectar from senior devotee experiences with Srila Prabhupada. And we also, the wisdom is mainly for senior devotee who really experiences Srila Prabhupada, and we getting nectar from them. We talk with His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj and other Maharaj, and today we have very special devotee, senior devotee, Her Holiness, Her Grace Malati Prabhu. She is
Malati Devi Dasi.
Malati Devi Dasi Prabhu. She is extraordinary personality for me because I know the beginning and also Prabhupada's story. I read a lot of story for her. So it's considered she's the base of ISKCON. And the beginning early, they have only few devotees there. And that time she went to the England, London, and established the Hare Krishna movement. And today we know more about her experience, Srila Prabhupada, and London story. And before go through, Dipeshwari Radhika Devi will telling about little bit biodata about her because her biodata maybe whole day can talk because lots, but she will talk little bit about that. And I pass to the Dipeshwari.
Hare Krishna, Malati Devi Dasi Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisance to your lotus feet. And very nice to get your association today. Thank
Hare
you so much.
Dipeshwari Devi.
I will read here. Malati Devi Dasi joined ISKCON in San Francisco, USA. She was intrigued by Srila Prabhupada in San Francisco in early 1967 and became an integral part of the pioneer years of ISKCON. In 1968, along with her 6-week-old daughter Saraswati, Malati Devi Dasi was part of a team of 6 adults to first establish Krishna consciousness in the UK. This epic adventure resulted in the release of the Radha Krishna Temple album in 1969, produced by Beatle George Harrison. The Hare Krishna Mahamantra and other devotional songs are featured on this recording, which received worldwide attention. She often traveled with her husband Shama Sundar, who was Srila Prabhupada's personal secretary. Among other tasks, Malati Devi Dasi cooked for Srila Prabhupada. She then moved to India to assist in establishing the Hare Krishna movement ISKCON there, bringing it back to its source. During her sojourn, she assisted with the purchase and shipping of several sets of temple murtis by to establish deity worship service in the American temples of Detroit, Dallas, Toronto, and Chicago. This experience introduced her to the process of purchasing murtis, a service she continued to carry out for various temples. She returned to the UK for some time to assist in establishing the property known as Bhaktivedanta Manor in Watford, London, acquired with the help of George Harrison. While in Europe, Malati Devi Dasi conducted traveling programs for women, thus sharing Krishna consciousness in the Netherlands, Belgium, and Denmark, and propagating the philosophy, practice, and books of Srila Prabhupada. In 1990, she established an all-female ISKCON temple, which later was awarded a large roadside bronze plaque by the State of Ohio Historical Society, organizing the center as the first Vaishnava and Hindu temple in the state, mentioning in detail its unique status in training women in Krishna consciousness. Malati Devi Dasi joined in GBC in 1998, and her responsibilities are focused in the USA. Her zonal area include Gainesville, Fort Walls, Miami, Florida, Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, West Virginia, and Western Pennsylvania. A founding member of the Vaishnavi ministry, known formally as Women's Ministry, Malati Devi Dasi facilitates such activities as annual international retreats targeted at promoting the spiritual advancement of women in ISKCON. These retreats are highly organized events offering classes, seminars, and workshops by some of the more senior women in the movement, and reflect the teaching of Srila Prabhupada. Malati Devi Dasi personally organized the annual Vaishnavi retreat in New Vrindavan, West Virginia, which began in 2000. Another project of hers in the Festival of Inspiration, also held at New Vrindavan. This is one of North America's largest gathering with the theme of Vaishnava education and culture, and is well attended by devotees from around the world. Malati Devi Dasi spent most of her time traveling, offering classes and instructions in Krishna conscious practice and philosophy, and is a regular participant in interreligious gathering. She holds deep concern for the future of ISKCON in general, and for the youth is particular. She advocates engaging women in all manners of service, inspired by Srila Prabhupada, who always engaged her in service. She is currently co-authoring a book that is a compilation of personal remembrance of female disciples of the movements and founder Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, lot of things. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
The book that you mentioned is complete. It was offered to Srila Prabhupada last year, 2020, on his appearance day. So this book is available on Amazon.com, A Bond of Love, Srila Prabhupada and His Daughters. It's almost 600 pages, and there's 305 interviews of lady disciples of Srila Prabhupada, and it's only $20. That's American, but not much more Canadian. And this book was compiled not to make money. It was compiled to serve the legacy of Srila Prabhupada, so that everyone would have a full, complete picture of how Srila Prabhupada was very much involved in the lives of his lady disciples. And in reading the book, not only will you find so much more about Srila Prabhupada, you will also find out how wonderful his disciples, in particular the ladies, were. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So it is our gratitude, love, and honor. Then Her Grace Malati Devi Dasi is here, and she have nice book. She already talked about the bond of love. And today we have know more about the association with Srila Prabhupada. So first of all, she talking about how he associated Srila Prabhupada, and second, London story. It is very important things. How build, because London is that time nobody know who is Krishna. They never know. and how she engaged all devotee together and become now is very big temple. Last time devotee are so much suffering, don't know anything. Even they know her book also. Now have lots of book, lots of facilities, opportunities more, and they're giving a lot of stuff. But because of them, we getting good, ready to go everything. So it is our honor and gratitude to you, Prabhu. So you are so great soul. Then you are associated Srila Prabhupada, and still you are continue your sadhana and dedication to Srila Prabhupada mission, Hare Krishna movement, and start with your story of Srila Prabhupada. Then we asking question and answer. So thank you so much again, and please everybody stay with us. Hare Krishna.
Om Yigantamanandasya Janana Sakalaya Chakchum Militam Yena Tasmi Sri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskachade Satarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvayevyacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So my greetings to all of you in Calgary, and thank you for the kind invitation to speak some words about His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. I will begin by two quotes from His Divine Grace, one in 1972, May, and another in 1976, June. Prabhupada said in May of 72, he was commenting, "The world is a very precarious condition. It's in a very precarious condition, simply for lack of God consciousness. This should be our point of stressing. We should revive this emphasis on God consciousness everywhere in the world. This will be our contribution." And then 2 years later, he mentioned, "It takes some time, but if we stick to our principles and do not make any compromise and push on in this way, as I have given you instruction, it will never stop. It will go on. At least 10,000 years it will go on. This movement is meant for those 4th class, 5th class, 10th class men. They are so fallen that they cannot be even counted as 3rd or 4th class men. They are 10th class men. Deliver them. Patita Pavana Hetu Tava Avatara. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's incarnation is for delivering these classes of men. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never meant to share this movement for high-class Brahmins, sages, or saintly persons. No, it was for all of the fallen. In Kali Yuga, everyone is fallen. So don't be disappointed. Go on, go on." Hare Krishna. In other words, we know sometimes it may be very difficult. Even sometimes devotees may feel discouraged. But as Prabhupada said, go on, go on. Because actually, this discouragement is a Maya. He's trying to trick you. So, Krishna. I wanted to mention a few things. But one thing is, Srila Prabhupada, very unique among all acharyas in this world. Even among the previous acharyas, very unique. Why is that? We know there's many acharyas, teachers, gurus, and we honor them, all of them. Even if they don't agree with us, we can honor them. However, we should not be confused or perplexed about the position of Srila Prabhupada, because he established something, he did something that no other previous acharya had done. He established the Yuga Dharma, chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra all around the world. We know that Lord Chaitanya said, my name will be chanted in every town and village. But people in India were thinking every town and village in India, and thus they were not broad-minded enough to understand the full meaning, the full purport of this simple statement, every town and village. However, a great thinker, a great seeker of the truth, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in the 1800s, was introduced to Lord Chaitanya through the medium of the Chaitanya Chaitamrita. At first, he did not even have a single copy. He just heard about it. You can see how important it is to hear properly by hearing about the glories of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from a man who was not even a guru himself. He was actually just a chowkidar, a night guard at the compound, at the home of Bhaktivinoda's family. But at night, the small son, Bhaktivinoda as a child, would speak through a small little opening in the wall to the night guard, asking questions about life and the meaning of life. And this night guard happened to be a Vaishnava. Bhaktivinoda's family, they were followers and worshippers of Chandi, Durga. But by Krishna's arrangement, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Kedarnath as he was known then, Kedarnath came into the association of Mahaprabhu through the words of the night guard, a simple man. And he told him about Chaitanya Chaitamrita. But in all of Bengal, there was no copy of Chaitanya Chaitamrita to be found. In the land of Mahaprabhu, you couldn't even find one edition. But still, Bhaktivinoda, he never forgot what he heard. And finally, later on, as he was married, family man, he was presented a copy of the Chaitanya Chaitamrita by someone who knew he was searching. He began reading that book over and over and over again. And through this careful reading and study of the Chaitanya Chaitamrita, he became fully convinced about the sacred position of Lord Chaitanya as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he became dedicated to the mission of Lord Chaitanya, which at that time was a big mess, because after the passage of Lord Chaitanya, for a little while, his teachings were intact. But as time progressed, the teachings became polluted and diluted to the point where no respectable person even would accept the Vaishnavas. They just thought they were people of low character. Srila Bhaktivinoda was very pained by this, and as I mentioned, his life mission to restore the teachings of Mahaprabhu. And to this extent, he prayed for a ray of Vishnu to help him. And his son, who became Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, was born. And our Srila Prabhupada became a disciple of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, and he followed in the footsteps of presenting Lord Chaitanya's message. And he understood that all over the world meant the world outside of India. In 1896, two important events. One was Srila Bhaktivinoda had completed a small book, The Life and Precepts of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and it was sent outside of India to McGill University in Canada, in Montreal, and to London, England. Another significant event in 1896 was the birth of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada on September 1st. One time, a reporter was asking Srila Prabhupada, when did you first come in contact with Krishna? When did you first know Krishna? And Srila Prabhupada answered very sober, in a sober mood, September 1st, 1896. So the reporter thought that Prabhupada didn't understand the question. So he asked again, when did you first become aware of Krishna? Prabhupada again answered, September 1st, 1896. Meaning, never was there a moment when he was out of contact with Krishna. In order to properly propagate the Sankirtan movement of the holy name, one must be fully realized, and one must know the message clearly. Prabhupada was sent by Mahaprabhu to help in the mission. And in this way, he is known as Shaktavesh Avatar, one who is given the mercy of the Lord to fulfill a particular mission. And thus Srila Prabhupada fulfilled the mission of Mahaprabhu to spread the holy name all over the world. And as such, he is not just another name on the disciplic succession. He stands out for having humbly served the mission by propagating the holy name all over the world. You know that sometimes there's some sports competition, right? Somebody runs so fast, they set a record, or they jump so far, they set a record. Srila Prabhupada and these records are meant to be broken. Somebody else is going to run faster. Somebody else is going to jump higher. Srila Prabhupada set a record that can never be broken because it has gone all over the world, just as Mahaprabhu requested. So now the only thing is that we have to, in Prabhupada's word, help push on this movement. It's a standalone instruction for all time, for anyone and everyone who comes into connection with ISKCON, with the Hare Krishna movement. It is our sacred duty to help in whatever way we can to push on this movement. So in 1967, Srila Prabhupada came to San Francisco from New York. And historically speaking, and it was historical because you all know how Prabhupada came to America, right? He came on a freighter ship. He came on a boat, a big boat, more or less. It wasn't a cruise liner. It was a freighter, cargo ship. And the name of that ship was the Jaladuta. He departed on August 16th from Calcutta, and he passed through 6 seas and oceans, suffering heart attacks twice on that boat. But somehow, by the mercy of Krishna and the mercy of his guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he survived because he had some work to do. When he came from New York to San Francisco, for the first time, he flew on an airplane. I think it was American Airlines, actually. So he, or something, or Transamerica. Anyway, first time he flew on an airline. The first initiation was in Janmashtami in 1966. And then a few days later, a couple weeks later, on Radhastami, there was a second initiation. So my initiation, the first initiation in San Francisco, was in 1967 on January 17th, expanding the mission. when Prabhupada arrived, all we knew was what we had heard about him. There was no media available. So what the few devotees from New York had come, a few devotees came from New York to San Francisco to assist in establishing this center. So we only knew what we had heard, but because we hadn't had any direct experience, it was a little difficult to understand things initially. So I can give you an example. For the initiation, I was given a sheet of paper with various ingredients to collect for the initiation. So I did that, but I had no idea. Some sand, some bricks, some colored powder, some fruits, some bananas, some butter, 5 pounds of butter. And I was like, butter's very costly. So like, what is this for? And the devotee who gave me the list said, it will be put in the fire. And I said, what? What a waste. So you can see, we weren't even neophyte. We were pre-neophyte. But somehow Prabhupada, in his causeless mercy, accepted us. In those days, when you put on your kunti mala, the beads around the neck, when you put the kunti mala on, they were tied with a firm knot. Today we have little screw things, right? They screw them on. Those days, tied on, because we call them our Swamiji's dog collar. We were becoming Swamiji's dogs. A dog, he obeys the master, or supposed to anyway. So we were, by putting on this kunti mala and tying that knot, we were committing ourselves to the service as he was at that time. So when the initiation began, our little temple room was filled up to the brim. In fact, some people were standing outside looking through the window because we were so packed up. And everybody was trying to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to the best of their ability. Little pieces of paper with the mantra, and people were trying to get all the Haris and Krishnas and Ramas in the right order. And there was lots of incense because somehow we had the impression there should be lots of incense. So literally there was a cloud of incense. And then the fire began. And Srila Prabhupada very, very expertly took some of the colored powder. He made some designs on the sand. And he started chanting some mantras. And he told us that each time that at a certain point, we would pick up some of the grains and we would throw them into the fire, say swaha, swaha, swaha. And we didn't understand any of it. We just did it. And then the beads for around the neck were coming, and I was looking at those beads, and I knew as soon as those go around our neck, this is it. That's a commitment for life. And I started thinking, am I ready for this? Do I know what I'm doing? And I was looking at the door at the temple, and I was thinking, well, I could always run out that door. But I didn't do that. I stayed. And one by one, there was 4 of us. Harvey Cohen, who became Haridas, Sam Spearstra, who became Shamsundar, and Hope, who became Harsharani, and myself, Melanie, who became Malati Devi Dasi. So we were given our names. And then the fire was going. After all the ghee was put in the fire, then we were handed bananas. And we're like, what do we do with these bananas? So we started to peel the bananas. And somebody said, no, you put them on the fire. And I'm thinking, ghee, butter on the fire now, like bananas on the fire, okay. And then Srila Prabhupada, he said, Bodum. That's what it sounded like to us, Bodum. He had learned English at in Calcutta, which was under the thumb of the British. And in particular, he went to Scottish Church College. So his English accent was Bengali, British, and Scottish. So initially a little difficult, but now, so we didn't know what he was saying. And we all kind of looked to Harvey Cohen, who became Haridas. And he was our temple president. So he would know what to do. He meant Swamiji in New York. He'll know what to do. Well, what did he do? He got up on his knees, he leaned forward, and he started blowing on the fire. So we also got on our knees, we leaned forward, and we started blowing on the fire. When that happened, it made a little break. And because Swamiji was on the other side of the fire, and we couldn't see him with all the smoke. Now we could see him because we were blowing so hard. His eyes were really large. By this point, we could understand those large eyes, which we called saucer, like, cup and saucer. So when the eyes got large, it looked like a saucer. So we understood maybe that's not what he intended us to do. And when Srila Prabhupada understood that we didn't understand, he picked up the kartals and he began kirtan. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Because what else could he do with these fools who are now his disciples? Such mercy and compassion, and such a desire to serve the mission of Mahaprabhu. I would just like to mention a few qualities of a devotee. You all know the 26 qualities of a devotee, but in relationship to Srila Prabhupada. So there's 25, 26, depending on which you read, which one you read. But then there's other qualities. So these other qualities, I'd like to sprinkle a few qualities for contemplation. One is Srila Prabhupada was creative. He was an original creative thinker and planner. And an example of this is ISKCON and its deployment to the Western Hemisphere. The first Vaishnav, organized Vaishnav, the first organized Vaishnav, I don't want to say religion, because probably we're not a religion. But anyway, it was the deployment in the Western Hemisphere of the first organization, the first organized teachings of Vaishnavism by Srila Prabhupada. He was intuitive. He would immediately sense something, often before it was revealed or known to others. I had a personal experience like that. It was in Surat, India, and we had a big sangha there, nightly affair where thousands of people came to hear Srila Prabhupada. And during the day, we went through the street in grand Harinam procession. And the people of that town were so enchanted. They decorated the streets with rangoli. They would have saris tied from one side of the street to the other side, from the windows. There was marigolds tied across. There was mango leaves. It was a big festival in every street where we went on the Harinam. And the newspapers were every day publishing our route. So wherever we went, they knew we were coming and they were waiting for us, and they would put garlands on us too. And so many, we had to take them off to some degree. And then people would want to come and meet Srila Prabhupada. So when we got back to where we were staying, there was a balcony overhead, and he would come out on the balcony and greet the crowd. And then later in the afternoon, people would come for darshan. He had a large room, and they would come for darshan. So on one of those occasions, I was sitting in the doorway, partly in the room, partly out. And there was something on my mind, and I was feeling adrift. I was feeling somewhat distraught. Oh, where did this go? I lost you. Hare Krishna. Am I still on? Oh, there. Somehow it came out of my, I didn't see the thing anymore. So, so I'm sitting in that doorway, and I'm just like feeling very distraught. So then everybody left, and I was still kind of sitting there. And Prabhupada said, "Is there something?" And he called me up, and I blurted out in just a few words, maybe 6 or 7 words, the situation. And Prabhupada perfectly responded and adjusted everything. But I didn't, he could see, he could understand everything without me having to even go into any detail. He understood better than I could. One of the qualities of a devotee, kind to everyone. So here is some conversation. It's September 24th of 1968. Prabhupada was meeting with devotees, and he gave some instruction. He goes, now, here's another thing. The girls should not be taken as inferior. You see? Sometimes, of course, sometimes scriptures say that women is cause of bondage, but that should not be aggravated, that women is inferior or something like that. So the girls who come, the women who come, you should treat them nicely. After all, anyone who's coming to Krishna consciousness, man, woman, boys or girls, they are welcome. So this was Prabhupada's mood. Another quality of a devotee, they're equal to everyone. Srila Prabhupada always presented himself as insignificant. He would say, I haven't done anything extraordinary. If I've done anything, it's that I have always kept to the teachings of my spiritual master, and I did not add or subtract anything. One time he told the devotees that a spiritual master takes his disciples as his spiritual master. He said that is the position. He thinks that Krishna has sent me so many spiritual masters. He doesn't think of himself as a spiritual master. He thinks of himself as a servant, because Krishna has sent these boys and girls to be trained, and Krishna has appointed him to train them. So therefore, he thinks himself as their servant. So anyone who is advanced, he can see the importance of devotees. And an advanced devotee never disobeys or respects another one. So one time somebody asked Prabhupada if he was the spiritual master for everyone in the world. And he looked down and he just replied, no, I am simply their servant. This is Srila Prabhupada, equal to everyone. Another beauty of there's some kind of sound going on. Do you know what that is?
Maybe your two, one is maybe mute, unmute. Maybe two is unmute. You have two computer or two?
No,
one.
Yeah. Nothing else is on. Maybe somebody else needs to mute. Anyways, it happens. Another quality of a devotee is faultless. Shyam Sundar, my husband, he was the personal secretary for Srila Prabhupada for 2.5 years. And he studied Srila Prabhupada very carefully, very closely. And he concluded he could never find that Srila Prabhupada had any faults. He never made any errors. In 1967, he handed a letter, late 67, maybe early 68. The early years, when I speak of early years, it's 67, 68. He handed a letter to one young devotee named Krishna Das. He said, take it to the post office. So Krishna Das started to leave his room, and then he noticed by the stamp on the envelope, there was a little, it was open. There was a little like perforation in the envelope. So he came back. He said, Swamiji, there's a hole here. You can see in. And Prabhupada looked at him and he said, without any ego, but in a very careful way, he said, know that all I do is perfect. He was a little surprised, Krishna Das, but there's a hole in the envelope. Prabhupada said, this letter is going to India. When a letter comes from India and reaches, they think, oh, there may be some money. They'll open it up. They won't find money. They'll discard the letter. Therefore, I've made an opening. They can look and see what's in the letter. Oh, it's only a letter. Okay, let it go. Know that all I do is perfect. He was very charitable, not in a mundane sense. Just like when we do prasadam distribution, we're not just feeding people because they're hungry. Of course they're hungry. Yes, take prasad. But we're giving them Krishna prasad. Actually, Prabhupada said, we are not vegetarian. We are Krishnatarian. If Krishna ate meat, we would also eat meat. But Krishna's not asking for meat. You know, a little fruit, a little flower, a little water. So one time in Mayapur, it was the first Gaur Purnim festival. And we were eating from leaf plates. We weren't actually eating very opulently because we didn't have much money. And then after eating, we would throw the plates. You know, it's a common thing. You throw them in a pile. And some dogs and some children would come and eat from those, lick the plates. And Prabhupada was observing that. And there he instructed us. So we had to start cooking. He said, within 10 miles of our temple should go hungry. So he was concerned overall for the health and wealth and spiritual well-being of all people. That is real charity. Just one more thing. No material hankering. The spiritual master is prepared to use everything in Krishna's service, but he is personally not desiring anything for himself. Many times there were opulent cars being offered for his service. He would sit in that car just like he would sometimes have to sit in a broken down old vehicle because it's all we had. When we picked him up in San Francisco from the airport, one devotee had a Cadillac. At that time, it was considered very good to have a Cadillac. Now I think it's something like Tesla or whatever. But, you know, at that time, Cadillac. It was an old one, too, but it was in good condition. So best car that was offered to him. We had another car, and that car was a 1954 Ford. And when Prabhupada had to go on any appointments, I got to be his driver. And I was driving him in this old Ford. Now, the Ford had written all over it, stenciled, Hare Krishna, stenciled. So it was pretty clear this was a Krishna car. So there was a couple of unusual features about this car. One of the features is the seat, like it was a bench seat, and it was slightly back, and you couldn't get it to sit up straight. So even though you were driving, you were kind of leaning back, and so was the passenger. And the other thing was the front of the car, the bonnet, the hood, it would fly up unannounced at any moment. You didn't know. So still, Prabhupada didn't say anything about, oh, why are you putting me in this car? Actually, one time when I was driving him, I asked if he knew how to drive. And he told me, no, I didn't know how to drive. He said, but I had a car. So in my foolishness, because I didn't know that in India, y'all had drivers at that time, right? So in my foolishness, I thought, oh yeah, he's a Swami, and Swamis are mystics. So he didn't, you know, he just probably sit there in the car, will take him. Now we have cars like that, right? They take you where self-driving cars, they take you where you want to go. But that at that point, they didn't have that kind of, you know, option. But here we had such a pathetic car, but he never said, why are you giving this? Because he had no material hankering for himself. Anything that was offered was there for Krishna's use and Krishna's pleasure. So, you wanted to know a little, because we have like a 12 minutes, bit about
now,
English? Or you
okay. So you continue. I just ask question and answer.
Okay, sure.
Okay. So what is the first things then you attract more to join Hare Krishna movement?
What is the what?
What things more attract you to join Hare Krishna movement?
What attracted me to join the Hare Krishna movement?
Yes.
Well, let me explain something to you. When I joined, there wasn't a Hare Krishna movement. It was only Prabhupada.
Prabhupada.
The movement followed. In fact, in July of 1967, when Srila Prabhupada had suffered a terrible, like a stroke, and he couldn't get well, we were trying everything we could to get him well. First, they got him a little cottage on the shore of the ocean in Long Island, outside of New York.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, it's in New Jersey. We were thinking fresh air, sea air, that would be good. But the entire time, it was cloudy, foggy, miserable. Then we got another cottage outside of San Francisco in Marin County in a little town called Stinson Beach. So it was a little better there, but still we couldn't get well. And it was during this period that we had the first Rath Yatra in ISKCON. He couldn't come. So then we brought the deities to him, and they stayed 1 week with Srila Prabhupada. But even then, he wasn't getting well. So he came to our little temple in San Francisco with an announcement. We were all gathered in the room looking very intently at him because we heard he was going to tell us something. And what he told us was that he was going to leave and go back to India to try to recover his health. And we were stunned. As long as his presence was there, whether it was New York or San Francisco, he was there. We felt his presence. And we were somehow emboldened to preach. On my initiation in 1967, after the initiation, he looked at us and said, so now go out and preach. And we were like, I raised my hand. How do we do that? And he said, you listen to what I'm speaking, and then you repeat. Don't add or subtract. So we were very bold. Swamiji was there. He had our back, as we say nowadays. If we had a question, we could come to him. Or if he was in New York, we could write to him, and he would answer right away. Now he's saying he's going to go to India to recover his health. And he said, I'm an old man. I may die at any time. That was so shocking for us. Okay, we knew he was elderly, but he didn't seem like an old man, not like the old men we knew in our lives who would just sit on the front porch in a rocking chair doing nothing. He was so agile. He was so active. And now he's saying, I'm an old man. I may die at any time. We couldn't believe it. We heard that mantra. You know the mantra? Birth, death, disease, old age. We heard it, but we didn't have the direct experience. And then he said, I want you boys and girls to push on this movement. This was a game changer, as we say. This was when we realized we are in a movement. It just seemed before it was just, the devotees in New York and Swamiji, and us in San Francisco with Swamiji, little competition between the two places. And now we realize it's a little bigger than that. And we were expected to help push on this movement. So Mukunda Adhikari at the time, he asked a question. And the question was, in your absence, can we ask one of your godbrothers to come and help us? We weren't trying to replace Swamiji. There was no question of that. The question for us was, how are we going to help push on this movement? We realized all of a sudden that we knew very little. How did he reply? Initially, there was silence, a very profound silence. Like in the Shastastika, a moment seemed like 12 years or more. We were holding our breath, just waiting. What is he going to say? And when he spoke, it was in a low voice. He said, "My spiritual master was not an ordinary man. He saved me." And then he said, "If anyone was to come and change even one word of what I have taught you, the whole thing would be spoiled." Now, we knew before coming to America, and even after coming to America, he had requested, he had written to his god brothers and others, "Come and help teach. Everyone is suffering here for want of Krishna consciousness." Nobody came. Most of them didn't even reply. And he could understand. Now there was a little interest because there was now a little success. There was a little interest. But the interest would not be to help. It would be to interfere. He understood what we could not. He said, "Everything I have to teach you are in these books." Now we have shelves of books. At that point, we only had Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto in 3 parts. Everything I have to teach you is in there. So we bravely pioneered on. We bravely tried to help push on this movement. And that order, that instruction still stands for today for every member of ISKCON. It is our duty. It is our obligation. It is up to us to help push on this movement in whatever way you possibly can help. Big, small, doesn't matter. But once we accept the mercy of the spiritual master, and we've all accepted Srila Prabhupada's mercy by becoming part of this movement, we have an obligation to reciprocate, to show our gratitude. And the best way we can do that is by following his instruction to help push on this movement.
Thank you. So second question is, I heard that Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra came USA. The first is toy form.
Not a toy. It was a small carved wooden.
Yeah, something like. What is that?
Small.
And how it is it you bring first and Prabhupada asking what is the rest? Can you tell me a little bit about this story, interesting story?
Sure.
And when?
Yeah, it was in probably around February, sometime in February. And I was in one store. And then I realized, what am I doing in here? It was an import store. And a lot of times, especially among the hippies and, the kind of avant-garde people, they would shop there. You could find interesting things from all over the world at very inexpensive prices. Well, I was in this store, and then I suddenly thought, what am I doing here? I didn't even have any money. So I'm leaving the store, and suddenly, right in front of the cash registers, I see these 3 wooden barrels filled with very colorful little figurines. And I picked one up. It was a black face with a red smile, big eyes. I picked it up, and on the bottom, it's little tiny sticker, made in India. Oh, I was thinking, Swamiji's from India. All of us from India. This is literally went through my mind. Hare Krishna Mahamantra's from India. Wow. And I took that little figure and I left. So now I didn't know what it was, just made in India. And I took it to my home. In those days, we had the idea that being a devotee meant you shouldn't have very many material possessions, which is true. But we took it to the extreme. We didn't even have a chair to sit on. We didn't even sleep on a mattress. We didn't even sleep on a yoga mat. We slept right on the floor. There was no furniture at all except a table that came with the apartment. That was it. Of course, a stove and a refrigerator, obviously. But in the front room, there was a fireplace with a shelf above it. There was nothing on the shelf, so I put that little colorful figurine there. Just that was it. And Shamsundar looked, and then Mukunda looked, and other devotees would look. We didn't know what it was. One day, Shamsundar and Mukunda brought it to Srila Prabhupada to show him. Srila Prabhupada himself had only one piece of furniture. It was a rocking chair. Otherwise, for his desk, he used a metal trunk that he kept his possessions in. He would sit behind that and use that trunk for a desk. So they put it down, and to their astonishment, he made obeisances. And he goes, "Where have you found this?" And they looked to each other, "Malati, bring her, call her." So he's on the third floor, overlooking the street. I was always in the kitchen cooking. That was my seva. Not only cooking, I had to get the funds together to finance the cooking even. Anyways, somebody came down. He said, "Swamiji wants to see you." I turned off the stove and I ran up the stairs. Actually, there was an elevator, but I was young, strong, and I was faster than the elevator. So I ran up I ran up the stairs, and I went in and I saw the little form. And he said, "So you have found?" I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Were there others?" I said, "Yes." And he was very sober. Prabhupada explains, devotees don't get excited. That's karmis, mundane people. They get excited. We look forward, we look forward to doing service, or we look forward to doing certain activities. So he didn't get all excited. He said, "Were there others?" And I said, "Yes, lots." The barrels. He goes, "Two." He says, "No, two others different." "Yes." He said, "Bring them." Then he said, "This is Lord Jagannath." Jagannath means Lord of the universe. The other two are his brother Baladev, or Balaram, and his sister Subhadra. Then he turned to Shamsundar. "So, Shamsundar, can you carve large size?" And with his hand, he indicated a certain height. Immediately, Shamsundar, "Yes." Actually, Shamsundar had gone to college, and he had 2 degrees, one in German literature and the other, I think, in philosophy. Not such practical things, really. He loved to work with wood. He loved to build things with wood. He had never carved anything before, but as soon as Prabhupada requested, yes. This is how Prabhupada would empower people. He would ask you to do something that you had no idea how to do it, but yes, I'll do it. Why? Because we wanted to please him. And sometimes it would seem almost impossible. Like one time there was this young girl who wanted to come. Her brother was a devotee. And she wanted to come to the temple, but she was 16 and the mother was not allowing, because the mother was keeping her back even from school and sending her out to shoplift. When that girl was born, the mother didn't want the baby. She gave birth. At least she didn't have an abortion. She gave birth and then walked out of the hospital, leaving the baby behind. So what kind of a life? So, the social services got the family together. But she wanted to come to the temple. She had seen the Bhagavad Gita, and she was interested. But the mother wasn't into it. So then he was like, "What can we do for my sister?" So what did he say? Prabhupada said, he said, "Perhaps Shamsundar and Malati can adopt her." How could that be? We're like 22, he's 24. I'm already pregnant. The girl's 16, but that didn't stop us. The next day, I went to the city hall. I found out how, the forms. I found out the procedure. I filled out the forms, submitted the forms, and we get an appointment with the judge. So the girl, her parents, myself, Shamsundar, we go before the judge. One by one, she takes everybody to her private room, talks to them, and then she came out and she goes, "It may seem a little unusual that this girl is 16 and the parents are 22, 24. But I award custody to this couple. And she had, they have a gavel. Bang. Done deal. So suddenly we had a 16-year-old daughter. Only Prabhupada could think of something like that. Yeah.
Very nice. So other things, one question coming for here. Then you always offering Srila Prabhupada, you have cooking and offering food, everything. And when Prabhupada asking for water, so how you give water? Just with tulasi or without tulasi offer to Prabhupada?
How do we keep water?
Yeah, Prabhupada asking for water. Then how you give water? This need to tulasi or just direct give the water?
We only offer tulsi to the deities. You don't give tulsi to a person. You can, if it's a maha tulsi coming from the deity offering, of course. But
directly not.
But it's absolutely not. And at that point, we had not yet cultivated tulsi. We didn't even, in those early days. Tulsi came a little later. But otherwise, Prabhupada was he did not like bottled water. One time in Paris, Hari Vilas Prabhu, he got the very best bottled water. Because in Europe, that's all they drink, right? Bottled water. So he brings it, a little proud, best water. Prabhupada looks at the water in the bottle. He goes, no, I want running water. Bring from the tap. Because the water is running. It's not stagnated,
How about Radharani? Radharani, you have to offer waters and how to do?
You just offer her water, but you can offer to her hand a tulsi leaf and she will offer to Krishna.
Okay, so when you put Radharani water, it's just plain water.
Just plain water. Do you know somebody who's putting tulsi in Radharani's water?
Yeah, some temple is doing this way, but so I'm a little confused about that.
That's not proper. So you should explain.
Yeah, okay. Because of this, we are asking question because people are asking this question because of confused.
Oh,
So
they have a deity worship ministry in North America. You're in North America. Jayananda Prabhu is the minister. And any questions like that, you can write to him. He's very good to reply.
Okay, because some people philosophy that Radharani offer first Krishna, so need Tulasi.
Well, we don't follow somebody's philosophy. We follow Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy as taught to us by Srila Prabhupada.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly.
Philosophy we follow.
Correct. All right. So another question is regarding the when you first went to the London and you don't know anybody, how you manage this thing?
Even I don't know. It was all I was talking to somebody the other day. We had, hey, guess what? No cell phone, no computer, no WhatsApp. I mean, nothing. And we couldn't even communicate. We had pieces, paper. You'd write a letter, fold it up, put in an envelope, put a stamp on it. You know what I mean? That was how, and then you'd wait for a reply. But we were very focused on the mission. We were not there. Well, we wanted to meet the Beatles, but not like other people wanted. Everybody wanted to meet the Beatles. We had no interest in meeting the Beatles for our edification. We wanted to give them Krishna consciousness.
That's right.
That's why we wanted to meet the Beatles. And because of that, Krishna made the arrangement. Because we were trying so many ways, and then finally, in a very unexpected way, it happened. And because of the Beatles, because of George in particular, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra was spread even further than we could have ever imagined. And then in the Krishna book, we couldn't even afford to pay for the printing of the Krishna book. And George agreed to pay for the printing of the Krishna book. And Prabhupada said, would you like to write a foreword? And he wrote the beautiful foreword to the Krishna book. And just because of that, it was so easy. You just show them, you show this book and see George Harrison. Well, right away, people would snap it up. At that point, I was in Denmark. I was distributing. And I would just say, well, look at this book. It's illustrated. And see George Harrison. Well, right away. They would take it. He helped distribute more books than any one person I know of. And to this day, I'm so surprised. Even to this day, people know the Beatles. Surprising to me.
Another question asking a bond of love. So
Yes.
it is loving with. Okay, can you tell me a little bit why you write this book? What the Srila Prabhupada's daughter and how it is inspired you to write this book?
Prabhupada and his daughters. Well, because most of what we had heard about Srila Prabhupada was coming from the side of the men. And there was lots of misconceptions about how Srila Prabhupada would interact with his ladies, and how in the very beginning, Prabhupada says, I have never discriminated between men and women. I've always accepted the service from the ladies, from the women, and that's a fact. But you get nowadays people like trying to act as if like, I don't know what, they didn't understand. Well, without reading about it, about our relationship, how are they going to understand? So one day I was in Bombay. I was going from Juhu back to Chowpatty, where I was staying, and I was speaking to one god sister because I'd had an incident at the Juhu temple that wasn't really very pleasing, and it was based on the fact that I'm a woman. I had been invited. We were having our GBC meetings there, and every morning there was, of course, Guru Puj. Anywhere else in the world, it's like I love to offer Guru Puj to Prabhupada because it's such a personal thing. In Mayapur, also in Vrindavan, so Bhakti Marg Maharaj was going to offer Guru Puj, and he looked up and he saw me and he goes, "Would you like to offer?" And he said, "Yes, I would." I was like, "Yes, I would." So I was offering, the Guru Puja. And afterwards, oh my God, big problem. Because what? A woman offered Guru Puja? Never mind that I personally cooked for Prabhupada there at Juhu. I mean, you're seeing a woman, you're not seeing a servant of Prabhupada. That's a problem. But it was so, they came to Tamahar, who was the chairman that year. You have to speak to Malati. You have to speak to Malati. And he was like, what? So then he comes and he goes, they told me I had to speak to you, so I've spoken to you. Okay? Like, he was shocked too. We were all shocked. So I'm coming back and I'm thinking, this is really bad. Not personally, but if this is how the mentality is against women, how is this movement going to spread? And I had personally observed how women were being treated. There was new ladies coming, well-dressed ladies, and they didn't know the situation, so they were on the side where the men were initially. Instead of going and saying, ladies over here, I do that all the time, and if I see the men on the side of the ladies, I'll say, excuse me, gentlemen over there. They could have done the same, but oh no, they come and they physically push these ladies. I mean, that's not good. So I was feeling really distressed. How this could be happening in Prabhupada's temple. So I was talking to a very dear friend of mine, and I said, we need to write our stories. We need to get our stories out there so people can understand how Srila Prabhupada was with us, how wonderful he was, how caring he was. So that's how this book started.
Okay, nice.
And by reading the book, you'll learn so many wonderful things about Srila Prabhupada, and you'll learn how wonderful the devotees, his lady disciples, were. So many people are saying, I had no idea, this is so amazing. Prabhupada was and is amazing. And those devotees who serve him, they're also amazing.
Okay, another question is coming. So nowadays is like Prabhu and Mataji. What your opinion about that?
I don't have an opinion. I follow Srila Prabhupada.
Okay, what Prabhupada said about that?
Just 1 minute. I will quote him verbatim as opposed to. If I can find. Okay. Quoting Srila Prabhupada. When one is advanced, he can see the importance of the devotees. Advanced devotees never disobeys or disrespects another devotee. Disrespect to another devotee is a great offense, Vaishnavapara. It is a very serious offense. Therefore, here's the part, therefore we teach to address among the devotees, Prabhu, Prabhu, such and such Prabhu. This should not be spoken simply by the lips. It should be realized. Everyone should think other devotee as his Prabhu, master. Not he should try to become master. This is Nectar of Devotion lectures in Vrindavan in October of 72. The point being, he taught all of us to address each other as Prabhu, men and women. And it created a nice mood. Prabhupada said, see each other as Prabhu. Now, some people, they've become so smart up here, they think, oh, but that is masculine. You think Prabhupada didn't know? I mean, excuse me? What does transcendental mean? It means above the bodily concept of life. And he was teaching us by practical example how to transcend the bodily concept. Now, in ISKCON, Prabhu has become male.
Yes.
But that's not the meaning that Prabhupada gave us. And it was such a sweet atmosphere that when we would address each other, men, women, everybody, was Prabhu, and try to see each other as our Prabhu. We become Prabhu, not that we demand to be called Prabhu, whether it's male or female, but we see each other as our Prabhu. And that is the way it should be.
That's nice, but new generation, they don't know these things.
They don't want to.
Why GBC don't establish these things?
Some of the GBC are new generation too, and now it has just become the mindset. But at least you should know. There is so, I mean, I could send you so much evidence in Prabhupada's books, in Prabhupada's letters, how he addressed ladies of Prabhu. I was there for, you all know Bishaka and Yadabar, correct? Devi, right? You know Bishaka? She's an author, she's a photographer. Her and her husband made that movie. At her initiation, which occurred in Vrindavan, I was there. So her name had been Jean, and he said to me, where is Jean Prabhu? There was another lady, Anna, before she became Annapurna. He was saying, Anna Prabhu, in a letter. He practiced what he preached. But now, we're so much more.
Yeah. So how you Prabhupada call you? Addressing you? Well,
usually he would just use our name, but there's even letters when he would say Malati Prabhu. I'm not asking, I don't care, what, but I don't want people calling me Malati Mataji because Prabhupada didn't call me that. Malati Devi Dasi, that is the name he gave. Yes. That is right. Well, somebody says to me, oh, Mataji, I don't mind. It's not a big deal. Let me be clear about it. But particularly in a public format, if you're being introduced for a public, like Malati Devi Dasi, that is the name given by Prabhupada. Why would you want to call me something else? That is the proper, But, somebody said, oh, Mataji, come here. No problem. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
But I have a problem with people trying to rewrite Prabhupada's history and deny that he would ever do that or say that. And I've been told, oh, he wouldn't do that, really? Then how do you explain this right there in the book? Everyone, the word everyone. So you say women aren't disciples? We're not part of the everyone? When Prabhupada said everyone must address? And he taught us that, beginning in San Francisco.
That's nice. Wonderful. Yeah, because this thing have to clarify the new generation. they know actually what is, because they're also following what is going on.
Yeah.
But most of senior people, they know, but junior who are coming, new generation, they
Maybe
don't.
people, they've forgotten or they didn't know.
Now, if you next generation going after few generation, they totally forget everything. They're going their own way. So because
Therefore,
of this,
we are writing these books and all of the films by Siddhanta, the Memory series, the Prabhupada Memories. He even has some books out called Memories by Siddhanta. Memories, a meditation, an antidotes of a modern day saint, Srila Prabhupada. Why are we writing these books and making these films? To keep Prabhupada alive in our hearts and to introduce the newcomers.
correct.
Because what is the Hare Krishna movement without Prabhupada?
Zero.
So in order to understand, you have to also know Prabhupada. Just like Krishna. If you want to love Krishna, you have to know who is Krishna. Isn't it? Prabhupada said that. How can you know, if you don't know, then how can you love someone you don't know? Therefore, he's writing so many books so we can know about Krishna. And we are writing books about Prabhupada so you can know Prabhupada.
That's right.
And there's so many, like the conversations between Prabhupada, those are recorded in books or recorded on tapes. Amazing information. The Morning Walk series, amazing information comes out between Prabhupada and his disciples on the morning walks. It's up to us to present Prabhupada, but it's up to all of you, the audience, to read, to watch, to hear. Become familiar with Prabhupada. Become a lover of Prabhupada. Then your Krishna consciousness will be much easier.
Thank you so much. So we have time already, 20 minutes over. So nice Nectarium talk. So I honor and respect because you are so nicely explain the actual things, what is Prabhupada experience with you. And it's very nice to, so we humbly honor you, respect you, and for your presence, and everybody like your activities because we are still going the Prabhupada mission in the beginning to now, continuing the mission.
Well, Prabhupada on his deathbed was still preaching, giving the purports and the translations for the Bhagavatam till his last breath. So the least we can do is keep trying.
Right.
Go on.
Right. So thank you so much, everyone, for watching this. So now we have to thank you again. Thank you so much, Malati Devi Dasi Prabhu. Thanks. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Garanga Prabhu, and all of those who I can't see. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.